systems go. Clear for liftoff. What is going on, Ship It Nation YouTube station? We are back with another edition of the NBA show. I got my guy, Hebrewcheetah, in with me. We're talking some NBA Cup again. There's 9 games in the association tonight. We'll be breaking down the 7 games on the DraftKings main slate. Looking forward to breaking it all down. I think this is the 3rd week in the row where we got the Cup. But Rio, I'll bring you in right away. What's going on, man? How was your week? Did you come close to shipping anything this week?
Nothing in NBA just yet, but NFL was pretty solid last night. I was heavy overweight on Higgins and had a lot of Christian Kirk as well. So yeah, it was a profitable night, I guess, technically, but I ended up winning like $100 off of as much money as I played. But yeah, been a pretty good week. I always like talking the NBA Cup. This is definitely the biggest NBA Cup week to date because you got a lot of moving pieces with the point differential and records coming into play for this one. So there's definitely some really big games on this slate. But yeah, my week's going good. How's your week going?
Yeah, going good. No travel for me this week, so I got a home game. We got some Thanksgiving action next week. Just one thing to note, Rio and I will be back here next Thursday, normal time, Friday afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you tune into that while you're watching some Eagles-Bears. We'll be breaking down the Friday night game. But yeah, looking forward to breaking this one down. Let's say hello to some people in the chat. We got our guy Little Neck in here. Philly Phantom as always. Matthew Cummings. What's going on, Matthew? Parabay, Jason Turner, Nate D, Minnesota Holla, Winsalot, Matthew Manning, Gang Green, Dan Gonzalez. Hopefully I said your name right, Dan. Eddie's in here. What's going on? Is that my boy Eddie Salazar getting his name up in here? Ham of Brioche. Ham and Brioche. I think he's supposed to say Ham and Rio. But let's talk about this first one. We got the Indiana Pacers up on the docket in Rio. I'll tell you what, they a lot of injuries there in Pacerland. Obviously, you know about Halliburton. You know that you're missing many men over there for the Pacers, and that's why they're 2-13. My boy Miles Turner playing in Milwaukee now, so they're missing a lot of pieces from last year. Taking on the Cavs. Should be a blowout tonight. We saw the Cavs come up short against the Rockets the other night, but Darius Garland is questionable. Jarrett Allen is questionable on the Cleveland side. And then, yeah, there's a whole laundry list of folks out. Neesmith, Rampage Jackson, my boy Obi Toppin. So talk to me a little bit about this game. Pacers at the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I feel like the line is a little bit too wide here. I do think that Indy is getting a little bit better as they get healthier. So I think that there's a chance that they keep it close, which would be great for fantasy purposes because Indy does play fast and it is a pretty good matchup for Cleveland. Also a pretty big game for Cleveland in the NBA Cup. If they get a win here, then they'll be tied with the Magic they'll have 2 wins. Magic are the team that they're chasing right now because the Magic are the only other 2-0 team in the NBA Cup with a similar point differential. So if Orlando loses one of their last 2 NBA Cup games against Philly or Detroit, which they definitely could, then Cleveland has a chance to make it out of the wild card in their in the East group. So I do think that they'll play this one pretty seriously because they definitely, if they do win and they win in a big way, that would definitely help them from a point differential standpoint. You just kind of got to hope that Orlando loses one of their last 2 games. I do think that Cleveland is a team that does care about the NBA Cup. With that being said, though, the Indy side is not super enticing. I think that Benedict Mathurin is probably the best option at 6.4K. He had a massive usage rate in his first game back, around 40%, and then that dropped a little bit last game, but still sitting around 28% on the season and leading the team in usage over the last 2 games. Don't really care too much about the matchup. Like Donovan Mitchell or Garland aren't that great of guard defenders. Cleveland has done a pretty decent job defending guards, and their rim defense is pretty solid, and Matherin's going to be looking to get to the basket. So I would say it's a slightly below average matchup for him, but still too cheap for a guy that has as much upside as he does, because even in the beginning of the season, we saw him really smashing in a big way. He came back and didn't skip a beat, really. 34 minutes last game, double-digit rebounds, had a double-double. So he looks like the best option. But I do have to mention Pascal Siakam at 9.1K because it is a flow chart type of play. The Cleveland Cavaliers are dead last in DVP against power forwards. He's obviously power forward. So I do think that there is a little bit of upside there if the game is close. Wouldn't say that I love him as a spend up because I think that he's probably better at like 8.2K to 8K, something like that. I'm not really sure. 9.1K is a price I want to pay for Siakam when you have Mather and Nembhard and TJ McConnell all taking away usage from him. So probably just a max one spot for Indy, unless we get news that like Jay Huff, who smashed in a huge way last time out, is starting. I don't think that they'll go to him this one because the front court for Cleveland is pretty big. So I think they'll probably stick with Isaiah Jackson. Well, he started in the second half. Sorry, he didn't start over Jackson, but he started in the second half. And then the Cleveland side, I do like the matchup for Donovan Mitchell, regardless of Darius Garland returning. I think if Garland is out, it makes it a little bit better. But even if he's in, I think he's totally fine. He's going to have Andrew Nembhard on him, who is a good defender, but the Pacers leave him alone. They don't really send a lot of help to him. So shows why the Pacers are one of the worst teams from a points per possession perspective against pick and roll guys. Donovan Mitchell obviously looking to get to the basket as well, drive heavy guard. Pacers are bottom 2 in rim defense, so it's a pretty good matchup for him. And like I said, if they do run the minutes up here, if he gets to like 36, he'd be a really, really strong option, 9.3K. I'm not going to go to Mobley. I just don't think that he's got the tournament winning upside, has not really taken a huge leap forward offensively. Still a good defender, but not really impressing me on offense. So I'm fine getting away from him and probably everything else. I don't know if I really want to mess with Jalen Tyson returning. He was playing really well before getting injured, but we'll see. He hasn't played in a few games, so they might ease him in. 3.1K, good price tag, but I think I just like the guards in this one, Mitchell, Matherin, and then I think you can play Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, excellent breakdown there. And from the files of You Learn Something New Every Day, Rio, guess what I just found out?
What's that?
It's the return of Gary Bird, baby. Garrison Matthews signing with the Pacers yesterday. Oh, wow. Let's get my guy Gary in the game. All those injuries I just saw, that's good to know. Don't play Gary Bird tonight, but give him some time to get acclimated to that little Carmel, Indiana weather, and he'll be rocking and rolling with the best of them up there in Indianapolis. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, nothing else there. I got excited about Garrison. So anyway, we'll move on to the next game. Your boys, the Nets, I can't stand playing them in DFS. Michael Porter Jr. has been a bright spot this year, though. Clowney and Claxton been decent as well. Taking on the Pacers, still no Jason Tatum, hasn't made a season debut yet. But you got Derek White, you got Jaylen Brown, you got Pritchard. Talk to me a little bit about this game. Nets, another blowout potential, 14.5 points. Only slated to score 104 on the net side. And then you got the Celtics slated to score 119. Talking about this game, Nets at the Celtics.
So from an NBA Cup perspective, this one probably has the least appeal on the slate because I think that Boston is a pretty long shot to get out of their group and probably won't make it out of the wild card either. They're 1-1 with a -12 differential, already lost to Orlando, but they do face Detroit in the last week. So they're really kind of asking for Orlando to lose 2 games in a row, and then they also have to outscore them in a pretty big way. Obviously, that could happen here against Boston. They're nearly 15-point favorites, so Vegas does project them to win in a pretty big way. It is a good matchup for Boston, but I do think that on a slate like this with the NBA Cup in, you kind of want to prioritize those games a little bit more. So I don't think that I'm going to get a ton in this game. It's just a max one for Brooklyn right now. I think if you're playing Claxton or MPJ, you probably want to play it for the game to be high scoring and close, which is probably not going to happen. So I think I'm probably going to have 0 of those guys tonight. And then the Boston side, I think that Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Pritchard, all really good options. I think I'd side with Pritchard here at 7.5K. Starting to shoot the ball a little bit better, and he has the added upside of kind of hitting all the peripheral stats. So I think that he's my favorite option, but I don't mind Pritchard either because he's shooting the ball really well right now. 18 of 35 in 3-point field goals over his last 3 games, 40-plus DK points in each of those games. So I think that he's pretty solid. Love the matchup with Jaylen Brown, but I don't think that I want to pay 9K for him in a game that doesn't really mean much. And then Keita and Simons, I think, can remain in your player pool. I loved the matchup for Keita last time out. He was pretty solid from a per minute standpoint, but did get into some foul trouble. So I think the same reasons that I liked him last week, last game, I like him here. The Nets are really weak rim defense, really weak rebounding team as well. So I could see him putting up a double-double, but yeah, not a ton of appeal in this game. I think Derek White is pretty good. Then everybody else is kind of average to below average.
Yeah, that's a breakdown there. How does Brooklyn do guarding the three-pointer? Do you know that off the top of your head?
I think they're decent at that. They're one of the worst of rim defenses, but I can pull that up if you want to.
Yeah. While you're looking that up, Gangrene said he thinks you meant White. I know you're talking about Derek White, but I don't know what he's.
What did I say? I don't remember what I said.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, I think you said, Pritchard, Brown, and then potentially White. I don't know what you said. Put in the chat, Gangrene. We'll try to get to it if we can. But while Rio's looking that up, let's move over to the next game. While you're looking that up, we got the Wizards, Marvin Bagley III. He is doubtful tonight. Alexander Sarr is questionable. Taking on this Raptors team, another 13.5-point spread. Got a big boy total, though. Not as big as the next one. We got a big boy total here, though, 240. We love picking on centers when they're taking on the Raptors. Both of the Wizards centers are banged up right now. So do you have any interest in these centers taking on Jakob? Do you have any interest in Barrett, Barnes, Ingram, anybody like that? Wizards at the Raptors.
Yeah, so I looked at the Nets numbers. It's nothing really crazy. Like they're pretty much average to below average against the three-point shooters, so nothing too crazy sticks out there. But yeah, this game definitely has a ton of fantasy appeal just from a game environment standpoint. Always like to pick on the Wizards whenever they're on the slate, and then the Raptors do play up in pace. I think this is the second best pace matchup on the slate with on the season. You have Washington's fifth, and then Toronto. They're up there. I forget what their actual pace number is. This should be a fast-paced game. Toronto doesn't really have they're favored to win this game, and they should win it pretty easily. But they don't really need to go crazy from a point differential standpoint, because if they win this game and Indiana loses, which Vegas is projecting to happen, then they'll clinch their group. So you don't really need to run their guys out there for a ton of minutes unless the game were to be close. But if it's like they're up by 20 in the fourth quarter, I think they might pull the plug kind of soon. But with that being said, it is a really good matchup for basically everybody on that side. But I'll hit on Washington first because it is probably the biggest Q tag on the slate, at least up to this point, with Alex Sarr listed questionable. They rolled him out pretty early last time out, so I think that it's probably a 50-50 chance that he plays. Hopefully we get word on that in one of the next injury reports in the next 15 or 30 or 45 minutes. But I would love whoever starts at center against Jakob Poeltl. Really good matchup. The Raptors have been pretty good defensively, one of the hottest teams in the league. I think they've won 9 of their last 10, but they are a bottom 5 rim defense. So it's a good matchup for whoever it is that's going to start at center over there. I think Vukovic, or I don't know if it's Vukcevic or how do you pronounce it, but it's a weird spelling. I think either way, he's kind of in play if Sarr were to be in or out, because I don't think that if Sarr plays, they're going to be giving him like 32 minutes off of the bat. I think they'll probably put him at like 27 to 28, and then they might run a little bit of small ball. But if it's just a full 48 minutes between those two at center, 20 is enough for Vukovic to hit value at just 3.2K. So I think that both those guys are in play. Max one of those two, slightly lean Vukovic. And then if he's starting, I think he's probably the best value play on the slate. I like Keyshawn George regardless. I don't think we're going to get him at the same ownership as we did last time out. Him and CJ McCollum are splitting the handling roles basically down the middle. He kind of ran a little bit hot in the last game with a potential assist. I think he had 8 potentials and finished with 7. So did run a little bit hot there, but he's really good. I think the matchup is tough, though. He should see Scotty Barnes. But if Sarr to be out, that's going to be one that I just kind of overlook the matchup, because his role with Sarr off the court is really good. All the numbers increase in a very meaningful way. So I think that he's good regardless, but could get really good if Sarr were to miss. And then I think CJ and Bilal Coulibaly are kind of just fine at their price tag. Don't really love anything about their matchup in particular. The Toronto side, there's a lot to like here, though. I'm not sure who Coulibaly is going to be guarding, but he's a really good defender. So I think it's going to be him on Brandon Ingram. And if it is that, then I would probably lean RJ Barrett as the better option between the two, because I think that it is going to be either Koulibaly on Ingram or Barrett. And whoever he guards is a guy that I kind of want to get off of because he's done really good at limiting guys. And I think that it will be Ingram. So that gets me on Barrett a little bit more. But Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, and Jakob Poeltl are my three favorite plays on the Toronto side. Jakob Poeltl being number one. He's kind of the top center play on the slate for me in a pretty big way. Washington is the second worst team against centers from a fantasy points allowed perspective. Poeltl's been playing a lot of minutes as well. Got up to like 32-ish in the last two games. Top 35 DK points in 4 of his last 5. The Washington just giving up huge stat lines to centers every single game. So I think he's an amazing play at 5.6. And then I think if there was ever a time for Scotty Barnes to hit in a really big way, it's probably in this matchup. Washington's bottom 2 against power forwards as well. We just saw Julius Randle go off for 32, 10, and 6. And I would say that in terms of how they like Randle and Barnes compare from like how they play, I think it's kind of similar in some ways. So I do think that he could replicate that that type of performance. You kind of would want Washington to keep it close if that were to happen, because I don't know if they were going to be like pushing him up for a ton of minutes if it's not close, but I do love the matchup for him. I think Quickley has been the guy that's just the most consistent from a minutes played perspective. Played 38 minutes last game, 41 DK points. Really good matchup. Washington's dead last in DVP versus point guards, and they give up the second most steals per game to opposing point guards. Emmanuel Quickley is averaging 1.5 steals per game this season, so love those guys. And then I think you can play Sandro and Jamal Shed. I would not pair Shed with Quickley, and I would not pair Sandro with Jakob Poeltl.
How many Raptors is too many Raptors in a tournament?
I feel like 3 is probably the most that you want. And then if you're getting into 3, I would imagine you're expecting the game to remain close. So you probably want to get a Washington piece in there. I'm normally just max 2 of like the Barnes, Ingram, Barrett, Quickley grouping, because I think it's rare that more than 2 of those 4 guys get there. So you could play like Scotty, Quickley, and Poeltl. I think they're all pretty strong value plays at their salaries. Even like Barrett, Quickley, Poeltl makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, so 2 of the 4, then you got Poeltl. And then do you have a preference of Sarr versus George? I understand different positions, different dollars, but let's say you're stacking this game. Do you have a preference between one of those 2?
I think it's going to be George, because I do think that the center position is pretty loaded tonight, mainly with some value plays. So I think that I would lean George. You're getting more minutes guaranteed from George. He's going to play probably minimum, I would say 34, with like the potential for 37. And Sarr is not. I'd be surprised if he's at like 32 tonight.
Got it. All right, excellent breakdown there. Appreciate everybody tuning in, all 200 of you. Make sure you're doing us a favor. Hit that like, hit that subscribe for us. Helps us out a ton over here. We appreciate everyone tuning in. My guy Jordan's in the chat now. Coach is in the chat. Warren Tyler, as always, long leave. What's going on, fellas? Welcome. Appreciate it. Hope you had a great week and about to enjoy the weekend. All right, Rio, it's on to the main event now. We got the Heat. We got the Bulls. I had to do a double take this morning when I was looking at the total, but I read it right. 249.5. One of the largest ones I've seen all season long. We know what this Heat team is with no Tyler Hero. He's still out on the shelf. Then we have a bunch of injuries on the Bulls side. Wiggins is out too. I should mention. And then on the Bulls side, we got a lot of dudes that are either hurt, out, or been out. Kobe White, Jones, and I know Vooch hit that game winner the other night. So talk to me a little bit about this game, Miami at Chicago.
Yes, I think even if this game was on any other slate, it'd be the best game environment on the entire slate. But then you kind of have the added NBA Cup boost. It is a really big game for both teams. The Bucks are currently in first in that group, but they're very catchable, only have a plus 16-point differential. Chicago is 1-1, and then Miami is 1-1 with a plus 10-point differential. So I think these teams are going to play it very tight, mainly Miami, because they play Chicago and then they play Milwaukee next. So they have a really good chance of catching up to Milwaukee with a win here. But then you have the added benefit of the injuries on both sides with no Nikola Jovic and no Andrew Wiggins on the Miami side. I think there's 3 ways that they could take the starting lineup. I feel like the most likely is Jaime Jaquez to start, but it could be it could be Kel'el Ware or Simone Fontecchio. I think that if Kel'el Ware were to be starting, it kind of makes things a little tougher because he is only center eligible now, I believe. Still only center eligible. Just kind of makes it a little tougher from a like positionality standpoint. But I do think that if one of Jaquez or Simone starts, I would really, really like that. And then for the Chicago side, injury wise, I think Kobe White's going to play tonight. They're on a back-to-back, and the beat reporters basically said that he's not going to play on both ends of the back-to-back. I think you'd rather have him in an NBA Cup game. So I think he's in. As for Trey Jones, not really too sure what his injury status were to be, but that would definitely open up a good amount of minutes at guard, and maybe even more for Kobe White, who's been playing really well. But from a matchup perspective, I think there's two clear paths for these teams to have success on offense. The Heat should definitely be looking to get out in transition, which they will. These are the two best transition scoring teams in the league, also the first and second fastest paced teams in the league. Chicago is dead last in rim defense this season, bottom half transition defense, and teams take the most rim shots against them in the league this season. 38% of teams' field goal attempts come at the basket against Chicago, so that's a clear way for Chicago to find success on offense, and then for Miami to find success on offense. For Chicago, the Heat allow the most 3-pointers against them. They do play a lot of zone. We've talked about it in years past. So if Chicago were to get away from their normal path of offense, which is mainly to play a lot of transition offense, and they have been a high rim volume frequency team this season, I think that they could look to get some more 3-pointers up because they have been a team that's been a really high 3-point volume offense in years past under Billy Donovan. So I think that that's the path for Chicago here. I'm already expecting a text from you after we get off the show to ask who's going to be the guy in Chicago to hit 6 to 8 threes tonight. And I think I already have one for you, but Let's wait on that. But yeah, the Miami stuff. So with no Andrew Wiggins, it's pretty big because he does leave behind about a 21% usage rate, 30 plus minutes a night. So a lot of that's got to trickle down to some guys. I think that Bam is a really good center option tonight, and he's not really getting a ton of ownership. The Bulls now are dead last in DVP against opposing centers, so he's kind of hitting in a big way for me. He stands out in a really big way for me tonight, and he's done a pretty good job against Vooch in the past. And with the sample's really small for Wiggins off the court this season because he's played a ton of minutes, but Bam does see his point per minute rates rise in a pretty big way. I think in a fast-paced game, his second game back from injury, they said they wanted to get him to like 30 minutes last game. We might see him get up to 30, probably 33, 34. I think that this could be the spot where we see the ceiling game from Bam, who has been a guy I'm normally going against because I just didn't really think that he has the upside. But I think that if there were ever to be a time for him to get up to like 55 plus DK points, I think it's this spot. So I'll definitely have a ton of Bam tonight, potential core play. And then Norman Powell, I think, is the guy that's going to benefit the most. Might go a little bit overlooked at his price just because people kind of view him as a guy that has to score 35 plus points to hit value, but I think he can do that here. He sees the biggest bump in usage with Wiggins off the court this season, 31.5%, with his fantasy points per minute increasing to a pretty strong 1.27 fantasy points per minute. Game environments can be great. The NBA Cup stuff is in there, so he could play 35, 36 minutes. I really like Norm Powell. Jaime Jaquez is a clear option at 7K. I don't even think I kind of hope that he comes off the bench and people get a little weirded out by that because I think everybody's expecting him to start. But even if he comes off the bench, like he's playing 32 minutes on a regular night, so he's probably seeing 34, 35. And he does a lot of everything. Doesn't really need a score to hit value because he does provide stats in all categories: steals, blocks, points, rebounds, assists. So he's really good. And then Simone Fontecchio should see his minutes come up in a big way. I hope that he starts because that should solidify him for like 25, 26 minutes. And he's only 3.5K. I would much rather play him than any of the other tertiary guys that are getting any sort of ownership between Pelle Larsson, Davion, and Drew Smith because he's only 3.5K. Been taking a lot of shots lately, double-digit shot attempts in each of his last 2 games. So, yeah, I think Simone is really good. I would probably look to get away from Pelle Larsson. I'm just not super excited about him, just generally a low usage, low point per minute guy. I think Simone is much better. So those are the 4 guys that stand out to me in a pretty big way. I don't think you want to play more than two of Simone, Pele Larson, or Jaime Jaquez tonight, because I think should the minutes come up for any of those three, it's going to come at the expense of the other. I feel like Fontecchio and Pele Larson probably correlate pretty negatively unless they're starting, and then vice versa for Jaime and Pele. I think that's it. I really like the Miami side. I could see them running like an 8.5-man rotation, with this being a very important game for them. It's probably going to be Keyshawn Johnson getting into the mix, but if he does play, it's probably not more than one rotation in each half, maybe just one rotation in general. And then the Chicago side, not getting a ton of ownership, but I definitely think that it should. And I think only to two guys I'm really looking to here. One is going to be Josh Giddey at 9.5K. His triple-double odds were pretty juiced up, so I think that, I mean, he's got a really strong floor and a really high ceiling here. Miami allows the third most fantasy points to opposing point guards, nearly 9 rebounds and assists per game to opposing point guards, and Giddey is one of the guys that can do a lot of everything. From a usage standpoint, his usage does get negatively impacted a bit while sharing the court with Kobe White, but some other things increase. His fantasy points per minute increase in a pretty big way, 1.61 fantasy points per minute this season with Kobe. The assist numbers get better, and just the overall offensive efficiency for the Bulls gets a lot better. So I'm not really too worried about Kobe White taking away some touches from him. I think that Giddey is a really strong option, and probably be the first guy that I look to if I'm looking to game stack this game with, 3 to 4 Miami guys and one Chicago guy. He'd be the first guy I look to. Second would be Kobe White, because I do think with this being his third game back from injury, there's probably a good likelihood that he's closer to 32, 33. And he's looked really good, like really not rusty at all from all the time off. He's made 8 of his 17 3-point attempts, drawing a lot of fouls and taking on a large usage role. So I think that people might overlook him at 7.4K, but I do think that there is upside for him in a really good matchup for 3-point shooters. And then if I'm also looking to game stack, I don't really love Vooch here, but in a close game, he will play a lot. And then if Trey Jones were to miss, then you can start to look to like Kevin Huerter, Io. I don't really love it for Buzelis. I mean, the fast-paced game environment should help him, but the minutes are all over the place right now, so I don't really feel too confident in him. But yeah, really a lot to like in this game.
Yeah, sounds like it. If Fontecchio starts, is he locking him in at that price, or?
I like him regardless, but yeah, if he starts, I think he's really good.
Yeah, excellent breakdown there.
Utah Jazz legend, by the way.
Yes, former Utah and Detroit legend Simone Fontecchio. Moving on to the next game, we got the Pelicans, Skinny Zion. We got the Mavs, Nico-less Mavs. Should be a terrible game because you got two terrible teams, but hey, they got a decent little total you got going on there. Tears for Fears, my boy Jeremiah Fears. Derek Queen just balling out of control at 5,500. Just put on a show the other night. But talk to me a little bit about this game. You got the Pels going into Dallas to take on this Mavs team.
Yeah, nothing for the NBA Cup here. These teams are out of the race, so just going to be two bad teams facing off against each other. These are really two of the worst offenses from a points per possession standpoint. The Mavericks are dead last, and New Orleans, I think, is like 6th or 7th bottom worst offense in the league. They did look a lot better last game with Zion out there, and then them running their offense through Derek Queen, which was a thing that I was trying to keep a close eye on because I didn't know how those two were going to work together, but it worked really well. They hung around in that Denver game. Offense looked fine. So I think that they'll be pretty fine moving forward as long as Zion is healthy. It is a good matchup because Dallas is no good. So I think that we're going to get normal minutes from these guys. And I think that the matchup versus Dallas is fine too. They are getting a little bit healthy in the front court with Lively and Gafford playing more minutes, but they've still been giving a ton of rim points up with those two guys out there. For the Pelicans on defense, they give up the 4th most threes per game this season, and they're bottom 3 in both teams are bottom 3 in pick and roll defense. So pretty good spot for the guards here. Zion's going to be capped 30 minutes, probably is, I would say, the most he's going to play in a game, at least for the time being. Matchup's fine versus PJ Washington, good terrible rim defense on the other side. So he should be in a pretty good spot here, but I don't really think that I want to play a guy that sees his usage drop by 4 points while sharing the court with Derek Queen. Also, not really great permanent numbers at just 1.28 fantasy points per minute. The role was not that great last time out. Didn't really see a ton of drives or touch time. He lost a lot of that to Derek Queen. So I'm okay getting away from Zion and any type of ownership. I just don't really know if I want to play him. Only, a guy 8.5K with that type of per minute rates that isn't playing a ton of minutes. So I'm okay getting away from him. Trey Murphy is fine. His usage held up just okay with Zion getting healthier last game. I think he's kind of grades out like as more of a cash game play because he doesn't really have a ton of upside. I don't think like 40 to 42 is fine at his price, but it's a pretty big slate. I think we're going to get some really high scores. And I want to look to the games that have a lot more importance to them for NBA Cup action. So I'm probably not going to get to a ton of Murphy if I had to guess right now. But Derek Queen, I will definitely get a lot of. Love that he's power forward eligible as well. Makes a lot work. If you can want to play like 3 centers, you definitely could with Derek Queen in there. Dallas is allowing the 5th most fantasy points to opposing centers this season. He saw a pretty big uptick in front court touches last game while sharing the court with Zion and was really good against Jokic. I think that the arrow is definitely pointing up for Derek Queen. He's my top play on the Pelicans tonight. And then Fears can stay in your player pool, but I see him being largely negatively impacted by the return of Zion. For the Dallas side, it makes it a little bit tougher, but if we do get word that D'Angelo Russell is out because he's questionable, that would make Brandon Williams a lot more appealing as a guy that should see a lot of pick and roll volume. I want to like the centers here a lot because it is a great matchup, but it's tough to know which one is going to be the one that pulls away from a minute standpoint. It has been Daniel Gafford. So if I had to choose one, it would be him. I don't really want to play a guy that's only playing like 24 to 25 minutes. But if I knew he was playing like 28 tonight, I would probably have a good bit of him because it's a really good matchup against the Pelicans. But as it stands right now, don't really want to get to much in this game from the Dallas side. I think that it's just Derek Queen and then I guess like PJ and Murphy are okay options.
Warren just asked about Max Christie. Doesn't sound like you have much of any interest in him. I mean, 150, leaving him in there, but Max Christie, I know you didn't mention him, so I'm assuming you don't have any interest in him.
Yeah, he's okay. I don't know, solid game log. The Pelicans do give a lot of points to shooting guards, so it is a plus matchup for him, but don't really have a like strong take on him. I don't think that much changes for him from a role standpoint if anybody were to be in and out.
What about Derek Queen? We see there that his ownership percentage is up to 26%.
It's going to be higher than that.
Yeah. Where I was going is like, how high is too high? Like, let's talk about single entry, 3 entry max. Like, can you fade him at 40%, 50%, or is it just like we're playing Derek Queen tonight?
I'm a little torn on it because the last time that he was chalk, he got there. He was okay, but I don't know. Like if it got up to 70%, which it could definitely get there. I'm gonna check really quick what Saber has him in some of these high stakes stuff because it's gonna be pretty high. They say 41%. I think that's fine in your single entry stuff. And if you're playing anything, like I'll be in the qualifier for the fantasy basketball live championship tonight. He'll definitely be in that lineup, and I think that he'll probably be 80+% there. So I'd be fine with him.
Okay. All right, Queen it is. Yeah, excellent stuff there. We're breezing right through these 7 games. We got 2 games left, and the next one should be a decent game, I would assume. You got a couple injuries for the Suns, and you have obviously my boy Ant playing in this one. Still no Terrence Shannon. Still no Grayson Allen for Phoenix. Still no Jalen Green. I think he played like 1 game earlier this season, maybe 2, but he's on the shelf. I got my boy Booker playing tonight. But talk to me a little bit about this game. You got Booker versus Ant and Randall and welcoming the T-Wolves or Timberwolves. I don't want to get corrected to Phoenix. Talk to me about this game, Minnesota at Phoenix.
Yeah, so Minnesota has a pretty good chance to extend their lead in a big way here. And I mean, it's kind of all up in the air for their group because it's Minnesota, the Timberwolves, OKC, and Phoenix all trying to get out of their group. Phoenix and OKC have only played 1 game, so I don't really think that there's like too much to go off of there. OKC plays Utah tonight, so they're probably going to catch up to Minnesota from the point differential standpoint, and then those teams face off next after this one, Minnesota and OKC. So kind of a pretty big spot here because I would imagine if OKC beats Minnesota. Actually, both those teams will probably. So I'm just trying to think this through. I think that it's a really big game for both these teams, but I think Minnesota more so if they do care about the NBA Cup, because right now they have a plus 54 point differential. OKC's behind them plus 31, and then Phoenix is plus 22. OKC has yet to play either of these teams, but they haven't played Utah either. So I think Minnesota is going to take this one very seriously, and probably good chance that the minutes get ran up in a pretty big way here. Decently big Q tag on Jaden McDaniels in terms of the outlook for the matchup for Devin Booker, but also for the rotation for Minnesota, because we did see pretty big roles from Naz Reid off the bench, 27 minutes last game, and then Dante played decently in that game as well, but played a ton of minutes. So that those minutes have to go somewhere else. Would probably be Mike Conley and Jalen Clark filling in most of that, and then Naz Reid mixing in a little bit as well. But it would really make the matchup a lot better for Booker, who I think is already in a decent spot, whether he's in or out. Mainly because the Wolves are a huge on-ball funnel, second worst pick and roll defense in the league. Phoenix doesn't really have a ton of areas that are weaknesses on defense. They've been pretty solid, but I think if there was one, it'd probably be their rim defense. But these are two of the better offenses in the league. Minnesota's fourth in points per possession. Phoenix is sixth. So it could be a lot of points scored here in a game that is projected to remain close, in a game where the Stars could really play a ton of minutes here. So I think that this is a sneaky spot because I don't really see a lot of ownership going to either side. The matchup for Ant is pretty tough. He's fared fine against Dillon Brooks in his career, averaged 45 DK points against him, 27 points per game. A little bit different spot here because Houston kind of just left Dillon Brooks on the island. They never are a team that sends a lot of help. I think Phoenix could, but that could also hurt them because of how well all the secondary guys are playing for Minnesota right now. Dante shooting the ball well. Randall's playing like an all-star. Naz Reid has been huge for them off the bench. So I think that if they do send some help, then we could see pretty solid games from the secondary guys. Obviously, I think Randall would be the main one, and his matchup is fine. Should see Ryan Dunn on defense. I don't think that's one you're really shying away from. The assist numbers are starting to dip a little bit over the last few games, but I think that he's a decent spot for this matchup, considering the Suns are kind of middle of the road rim defense. And then I think if Ant does get shut down, I kind of like the spot for Dante DiVincenzo. 5.4K is a good price tag for him. He does have pretty solid upside. Will take a ton of threes. And then if Jaden McDaniels is out, that also helps him a little bit as well. But I do think that Ant is a guy you should consider tonight in your player pool. Maybe not in like single entry stuff. I think it might be kind of tough, but I do think that this is a very, very appealing game environment with a lot of importance. And then for the Suns, it's mainly Devin Booker. Like I mentioned, the pick and roll stuff for the Wolves has been a pretty big issue for them this season. And then if Jaden McDaniels were to be out, then Devin Booker looks like a really strong option. He's capable of playing 38 to 40 minutes, and he does have a ton of upside. So I do like Booker a little bit. And then Colin Gillespie has just been playing great for them off the bench. So I think that he's very, very much in play. And then lastly, Dillon Brooks, really high bump in usage for him this season compared to last year with Houston. I think it's a little bit too expensive to go to him, but he has hit in some pretty big ways this season. So you could consider him. I doubt we're getting a tournament winning game from him, but he's not in play.
Yeah, we got a good question in the chat. Randall 8,600 versus Barnes 8,500.
It's going to be Scotty Barnes for me. I can't get over that matchup. I think it's really good.
Yes, Scotty Barnes in a nut matchup against the Wizards. All right, one game left. Let's talk about it. We got the dadgum Joker 13-2 in Rio. I don't know if I've ever seen it. A guy is what? 30, I'm not good at math. What is that? 3,700 more than the next person. 35 more hundred than Shingun, however you say his name. He's in the 13-2 is a lot. But talk to me about this game. Denver at Houston. We know how Houston's been playing. They've been on a roll as of late after losing the first two of the season. But you got the Joker 13-2 has been balling. I don't know if you saw that tweet, but he's basically had a triple-double in 9 of 10 games or 12 of 13 or something crazy like that. Can't wait to watch this one. You got the Nuggets with no CB at Houston taking on the Rockets.
Yeah, another game with some pretty big Q tags. Jabari Smith and Steven Adams are listed questionable. Jabari was questionable last game and he played. Steven Adams downgraded. So we'll see what happens there. I feel like they're going to play. It's another pretty big game for the NBA Cup. Yeah, all these teams in Group C are 1-1 right now, and Denver has a +10 differential over Houston right now, +23 versus +13. So really, really big game here for both these teams. And I think just in terms of like the West, it's a really big game because these are two of the top teams in the West, two of the best offenses and defenses in the league. So it's going to be a very, very good game to watch. But I'm not sure if the defenses are going to play better than the offenses here and we don't get a ton of fantasy points. I could see either way it goes. I feel like there's a wide range of outcomes on the game from a fantasy points perspective, but really could see the minutes getting pushed up in a big way here just for how big this game is for the group. These are the top 1 and 2 ranked offenses in the league from a points per possession standpoint. Rockets are the best offensive rebounding team in the league, 40% rebounding rate, which is 4 points better than the next team. They can give up some threes. The Houston defense can. Denver is not really taking a ton of threes right now. And then the pick and roll defense for Denver has been a little bit worse in seasons than it has in seasons past. Rockets are bottom 5 in transition defense this season, and not really too much to talk about there because Denver kind of operates in the half court a lot more, so they probably aren't going to be able to capitalize on that there. But yeah, talking about the Denver stuff, Jokic obviously always in play. Anytime you get him at single digit own, you should, but he's 13.2K. You realistically need 80 DK points from him. He could definitely do that in any matchup. He's matchup proof, but if there were ever a spot for him to have a down game, I would think it's against Houston, just how big and how good their defense has been in the front court. So I'm going to try to get some of Jokic. There's a lot of really good center options that could outscore him from a points per dollar perspective that I mentioned earlier. But obviously you're getting Jokic at single digit ownership. So you gotta have a little bit in your portfolio, I would say. I think that Jamal Murray is kind of interesting at 8.5K. Obviously a really tough matchup against Amen Thompson. Amen and Houston have just been really good against a pick and roll this season. But we've seen before Jamal Murray getting up for some of these bigger games. And he's had one big game against Amen Thompson in his career, put up 56 against him, and then 34 points or below, DraftKings points or below in the other 2 games against him. So I know that the range is pretty wide for him, but I do think that there is a slate breaking upside range of outcomes for him as well. So I'm going to get to a little bit of Jamal because I do think that this is a game that has a potential to shoot out in a pretty big way. I think Aaron Gordon's okay. He's been playing really well before the injury, but nothing about the matchup really stands out for him. He's kind of, backdoor cutting guy, and the rim defense for Houston's very good. Don't mind Peyton Watson coming off of a career outing, 32 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 55.5 DK points. It's going to come down a little bit as Aaron Gordon is back in this one, but he should still play upper 30s minutes tonight. I think they're going to need him a lot on defense in this game. I would say the Houston side is a lot more appealing just because the prices are better. Sengun at 9.7K, kind of like a mini Jokic, just the way that they use him on offense. He's been doing really good this season. They run the offense through him, been close to triple-double in basically every game. So I'm not going to repeat myself, but he is really close to some massive games. He did put up 55 DK points, and I would say, quote-unquote, a tough matchup because I think that the Cavaliers' defense is probably a little overhyped. But this is also a pretty tough matchup. I do think that you kind of get like 70% Jokic at $3,000 cheaper. So he's probably the best upside option on the Houston side. Don't really like KD, never really advocating to play him except for the last slate that he was on. I think that it's just not a great spot for him. Going to see 2 pretty tough defenders in Peyton Watson and or Aaron Gordon. I think that he's in play for sure in a game environment that could be pretty good, but I think that I like Amen a little bit more. Been playing a ton of minutes lately, 40 and 39 in his last 2 games. Does not have a good track record against Denver, but we know that the slate winning upside is definitely there for Amen, and his price is starting to come down a little bit more. Sub 8K is a pretty good spot for him. I do wish that he had dual eligibility still. Even if he had shooting guard eligibility, that would help a lot. But just point guard right now, so it makes it a little bit tougher. And then if Jabari misses, Reed Shepherd would look really strong. I would want a ton of him because he'd only be 4.8K. Probably would be sliding into the starting lineup. I don't know if they would want to have Okogie out there with Steven Adams and Sengun, because I think that spacing kind of hurts there. But I do think Reed Sheppard would be a he's kind of in play regardless, just how well he's played. But I think he'd be a really, really good value play if Jabari Smith were to get ruled out. And we should get that news fairly early because the Rockets are posting their starting lineups like sometimes 2 hours before tip off. So maybe they'll give us the injury report earlier than usual. And then Steven Adams is one of the top value plays at center as well. I imagine they're going to ask him to play a good amount tonight to match some of Jokic's minutes. He's not going to put up a ton of shots, doesn't really do anything other than rebound and tip balls. And I think that you can make the case that this would be one of the worst matchups for him because the Nuggets are a really good rebounding team and a good rim defense. But for 4.1K, somebody that averages over 1 fantasy point per minute, I think that he's pretty solid. So, yeah, good game, sneaky high upside, kind of similar to that Minnesota-Phoenix game. I think that this game could be heard from in one way or another.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know Jokic is obviously very expensive, but he's also 12 points projected more than the next guy. So, interesting what you're going to have to do with him. If he goes for 80 and you don't have him, you're fried. But if he goes for 50, he's taking up a lot of salary. If there was one game, an entire game that you were fading, which one do you think it would be?
It would be Brooklyn and Boston, I think. I feel like that one just has no NBA Cup implications and a really high spread. There's a lot of ways that it could go wrong.
Yeah, that'll do it. That's all 7 games. Appreciate you tuning in. If
we'll give the FanDuel people some love just because we always focus on DraftKings and kind of skip over FanDuel, but we got done pretty quickly. I'll little preface though, I haven't looked at FanDuel at all, so I don't know what that slate looks like, but I know that Portland is on it and they have a lot of injuries. So that would be one I'm kind of focusing in on. Jeremy Grant looks great. Denny looks really good. I think Klingon is probably pretty good as well. It's a little bit of a tougher matchup, so he'd be okay. Don't really like too much on the Golden State side. I think Steph that game is going to play up in pace. Golden State does have a really solid team total. Portland's defense has been kind of bad lately. So I think Steph is pretty good. OKC, they're going to blow out Utah, so I don't think I want that game. The prices in the Houston Denver game is pretty good. I'm in only 8K over there. Steven Adams 4.3K. Jokic a little bit more appealing at 12.8K on FanDuel. I think Phoenix looks a little bit worse on FanDuel. Minnesota probably not in play on FanDuel. New Orleans, Zion's only 8K there. Derek Queen 6K, also has power forward eligibility, so I think he's great on both sides. Still think you want a lot of the Miami-Chicago game. Giddey's only 9.3, good price tag. Bam also has power forward eligibility and center, so I would probably be playing a lot of Bam and Derek Queen lineups. And then Hawk has 6.8, really good. Simone 3.9K, good price tag there. It's kind of the same thing. Like Washington and Toronto is very good as well. Scotty's only 8.7. I like the price on Pirtle there at 6.3K. Vukcevic, I think somebody said Vukcevic is how you pronounce it. He's min price 3.5K. So if he's starting, that's probably the guy you're filling in your center spot. Same thing for Brooklyn and Boston. Don't like that game. Then Indiana and Cleveland looks a lot worse on FanDuel as well.
Yeah, I think the Indiana, obviously, it's the first one that goes off at 7. You could probably fade that one as well. There's a couple pieces if you want to do that. All right, we also, what's the top spend up not named Joker on the slate tonight?
I don't know if I would even say he's a top spend up, just with the pricing considered. So we're just doing like 9K plus then?
Yeah, 9K to 10K. I know there's nobody at 10K, but yeah, in that range.
I think just from like a pure upside and game environment and role standpoint, I would probably say Josh Giddey at 9.5K.
Josh Giddey,
yeah, he's the guy.
Even with Kobe, you still okay with him?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about him like dipping off in a really big way with Kobe out. Like I said, I think that just makes the overall offensive efficiency a lot better, and his numbers from a point per minute standpoint actually get a little bit better this season with Kobe on the court. Granted, it's a small sample size, but he does improve the offense. Like the assist numbers are going to look a lot better with Kobe on the court.
Nice. And then Andrew, we covered this a little bit earlier during this game. I mean, 3 Raptors at the most, but make sure you go back and listen to that. There's certain ones that you want. And then if you have 3, you're going to want one of Sar or Keyshawn George in your lineup. And Rio preferred Keyshawn George. All right, last question before we get out of here. Give us a slate breaker tonight. Let's go somebody under 10%, Rio, that no one else is playing that's going to break the slate tonight. It's going to be on the winner.
All right. Let me see here. I got to sort by ownership. Let me see what Saber has for this guy. I might have to break the rule a little bit and actually no, we're good. We're good. We'll
go 15%.
No, we're good. I got my guy because he's looking at single digit ownership in like the flagship stuff and high stakes single entry.
Oh yeah, let's give it to us. Give us the winner.
I like Bam Adebayo a lot here. Love this matchup. Love the game environment. Makes a lot of sense to pair Giddey with Bam and then a couple other these guys with the value on the Miami side. I feel like that's the game that I want to get the deepest into. I really think that it could blow the other games out of the water, and I feel like Bam just in this matchup looks like a really strong option. So yeah, Bam's my guy tonight.
Bam, 8K, almost 8% owned. There you have it. Bam and the Giddler. Good luck tonight in your contest. We got you covered all weekend long over here at the Nation. We got college football tomorrow. We got NBA all weekend. We got Showdown NBA. We got Showdown football for Monday night. We got the main show on Sunday. For my guy, Rio, I'm Ham. We'll see you next time. Let's ship it.